Alright guys, this is Jesse with Permofit. I'm gonna come out with you with a video since I haven't done one in a while. So the starter on my car took a crap, I think. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to clean it up and see if it needs to be either rebuilt or replacing or whatnot. So this is for a 98 Sunfire, and this is a gear reduction starter. So the replacement for this is about 120 bucks. There's a larger version. It's about like this, about like that. It's a direct drive and it's about 60 bucks. Then there's a universal, which is about $159. And I think the mounts for all of them are the same. These two bolt holes right here. But the direct drive, this guy is way bulkier. It's big. And I don't know what the hybrid one is because they didn't have one in stock to show me. So here's your gear, and this shoots out and spins. And as you can see, this thing is covered in oil and grease and everything else and stuff. So I'm going to try to clean this up. Anyway, so I'm just going to generally wipe it down just to keep the mess to a minimum. Real quick here. And then I'm hoping that it'll just be dirty. The commutator and the brushes and contacts and all those and stuff are just nasty. And hoping I can go from there. So I'm going to start off by removing these guys here and see if I can pull this off. Holy shit. Ooh, okay, so I see some planetary gears here. I don't want to mess those up, so I'm going to leave that part in there. Let's see if I can pull just the back off. Okay, so that looks pretty dirty to me. When I say dirty, I mean filthy. I'm going to see if I can clean that up. I just got a stainless steel brush here. Be careful not to... Oh yeah, I got just piles of carbon. Piles. And the brushes, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know what a new brush looks like, but they look like they have lots of life left in them. But I could be way off.
Probably are.
It happens all the time. So I think I have let's see, the bearings are still good. See the bearings spin there, needs to be cleaned, but let's see inside there. Just, it's amazing they don't try sealing up starters. Of course, I'm sure it's a lucrative business to have them not sealed. Then you got to constantly replace starters. So if this works, which I've never done this before, it will be amazing. And you guys will all owe me a beer for watching this video and saving yourself $60 to $100. I expect that beer to be sent to my P.O. box. If I had a P.O. box. Alright. I think I'm going to take this outside and hose it off. Be right back. Alright, so this is generally what everything looks like tore apart. Solenoid, you got your planetary, this is your plastic gears, these are the pins that your other gears sit on. Now this guy I cleaned up. There wasn't a lot of grease on it, so it's going to have to be re-greased. Now this guy here just fit right on there. This guy was packed full of oil and it looked like sand particles and everything else. Now I used a degreaser and a brass brush and just cleaned it as much as I could. It's way better than it was. The main thing is, as your stator sits inside there and spins, you don't want it to get all gouged up. So take it over to the stator. So the copper is in pretty good shape, but it had all kinds of charring from just lots of power going across it, and it was covered in oil and sand and everything else and stuff. So as your brushes rub against this, it takes a little bit of the copper off as well as a little bit of your brushes off. And if you get sand and oil and other debris in there, it adds resistance to the connection, therefore reducing the amount of power that and performance of your starter, but it can actually draw more power because it's trying to perform. So what I did is I used a lot of degreaser on this, as well as a brass brush and a nylon brush, because I don't want to damage the copper. So brass is soft, and brass will actually, you'll actually notice the brass scratching the copper a little bit, but it's not as bad as, don't use a stainless steel brush. And basically cleaned it all up and inspected the gears. So the gears look in really good shape. You can see a little bit of wear on them. And the stator looks in really good shape. The copper is in pretty good shape. It's got some wear. The planetary gears, as well as the copper ring gear, planetary ring gear, it's still a little bit dirty and it's got some wear, but it's in pretty good shape. The main thing is if it was in the spot and it skipped, it somehow popped up and skipped, or something got loose and chunked out pieces of this gear, then it's toast. So this is in pretty good shape. It's just dirty. Bushing's in good shape. Now the brush assembly, this is a pain. I went to Napa and O'Reilly's and called around and looked online. Now this is a gear reduction, I believe it's an F2 starter. Don't quote me on that, but it's a gear reduction starter for a 98 Sunfire. And the brush assemblies, this is a brush assembly. This is the backer plate, which goes on the back of the starter. It sits like this. So this plate is not part of your assembly, but this wafer board looking, fiberglass looking stuff, the brass, the wire, mesh, your brushes right here. This is all, let's see if I can get this to focus just right. This is all one assembly. Now when I went to O'Reilly's and Napa, I told them this, they gave me a universal part and they gave me some replacement brushes. So I'm thinking, oh, that's great. I'll just swap these brushes out and it'll be as good as a rebuilt, or almost as good as a rebuilt starter. So a rebuilt starter for this guy would cost me like $120. A new starter would cost me like $140, and a universal starter, which would fit the compound starter or would also fit a direct drive starter, would cost like $150, $159. Well, if I can rebuild this for the cost of the bushings, or if that's especially the major part that wears out, I went and priced them, and Napa was selling the bushings for I think $1.50 for a set of 4 bushings, or brushes. I keep saying bushings. Sorry, brushes. $1.50 for a set of 4 brushes, and Riley's, which is closer to me, was selling them for $2.29. So I'm like $2 versus a $100 or $150 starter sold. So I get the brushes and they don't fit. So take my micrometer. So the width of these brushes are, if you can read that, 0.20. That's inches. In metric, it's 5.25 millimeters. So in English, or standard, it's 0.20. So the ones they sold me were 0.25. So they're too wide and they didn't fit. So I look around online, I found a website. I'll put the description and a link below. And I found an entire rebuild kit, which comes with this assembly, the bushings, my solenoid, and any other little parts that you need to totally rebuild the starter for 35 bucks and like $7.50 or a little under $8 in shipping, which in my book is pretty stinking awesome. So I have to wait for the parts to come in. But in the meantime, I cleaned everything up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the starter back together and see if I can get a few more starts out of it. And if it takes a week or two for the kit to come here, it only takes like 15 minutes to pull this starter out. It's pretty straightforward for a 98 Pontiac Sunfire with a 2.2 liter engine. So anyways, I'm going to put this back together and make sure I'm going to grease everything and lube everything. The video, or the place where I'm getting the kit that has the link in the description, not only do they sell you the parts, but they have instructional videos on how to do it, how to tear it apart, how to rebuild it. Just a phenomenal website, and they have the correct parts, because everywhere else you look, it's for the direct drive starter. So anyways, I will put this back together now and grease it up. I'm going to do a little bit more cleaning, and I'll come back after I cleaned it. This was just packed full of grease. There was so much grease and oil and just stuff in here covering the bushings, as well as filling up all the free space. It was a wonder this thing it's just sucking all the amps out of my batteries to try to go, and it just wasn't performing. So anyways, I'm going to clean this up a little more and put it back together. I'm using the side of the brush to get more surface area on this copper. Just a little bit left I want to get off here. Now when you're using the degreaser, you want to try to avoid getting any WD. You don't want to get any WD-40 or any engine degreaser on this bearing or any other bearings, because this is a sealed bearing and there's grease in there. And if the grease leaks out or gets diluted and spins out over time, this bearing is going to seize. So you want to make sure this bearing stays in good shape. I'm going to use some dielectric grease on a few spots, as well as some white lithium grease, which I believe is also a dielectric. So I'm going to be using some of this stuff. Most of the stuff I get is from Harbor Freight because I can't afford anything else. So don't knock Harbor Freight. It's better to be able to do a project than not do a project. See, it's still got a little bit of grease on it. So, that's all right. I'm not going to clean it super good because I'm just going to be putting this back together and using it, or trying to use it, while I wait for the new parts to come in. Now there's quite a bit of residue of grease and as well as degreaser in here. So you want to get that as cleaned up as you possibly can, and you want to get it as lubed up as you possibly can. Now I'm using Pro 21. It's got just spectacular performance characteristics. I believe they subcontracted to NASA for some stuff. It's fully synthetic. They it's just amazing stuff. It stays put. It works in all kinds of crazy temperatures. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a liberal coating on everything, but I'm not relying on just that. I'm also going to use lithium grease, because it's going to need that. It's going to need the grease as it functions. Alright, so I got this guy all greased up. Now mine has external mounting bolts, so there's this notch right there that lines up with this plastic notch right here. Before I put that back on though, I'm going to put the stator in the housing. So you need to take your finger, put it through here, because you're going to need to hold this guy, because the magnets are going to pull it all the way in. So get this guy back off here. You're going to also want to put this guy back on. Now when you get your kit, it's going to be a pretty better setup for doing this, but I don't have the kit yet, so put a little more lube on this bearing on the underside. And I'm going to try to push the bearings into place, or the bushings into place, best I can. These guys are pretty worn out, but I'm going to try to get this in here. So then you're going to hold this like this, wrap your fingers around, and you're going to want to hold on to your stator. You're going to take this plate comes out, by the way, I just did not pound it out on mine. Take your finger, put it through there, so you can guide this in. Let's see. Spin it around, trying to push this out so I can get it like that. Trying to get it lined up. So, now this is in here. You want to put this guy together. You got your notch, which goes right here. So just like that. Drop my bolt down. Make it a little easier for me to get it out in the future. What we have here, so we have the starter. You got this guy here, which spins. And let's put it back together. So I'll clean this up a little bit and go reinstall it. This guy goes back on here. Little dielectric grease. Put it on first. Alright, and this guy just installs on the studs. You hook up your 2 wires and find out if it works. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate you watching this.